Hello and welcome back to another Deck Factory video. Today is a very special one because I have Boomguy here with me to talk about Serve and Protect. How you doing, Boomguy?
I'm so good. I'm excited to talk about this card, actually, and thanks for having me on the Deck Factory episode.
Yeah, this has been a collaboration in the making for a while because we've been kind of talking about how I have these videos where I talk about a card, build a deck around them, and your entire podcast. You know what? No, actually, you're the expert. Tell us what your podcast is.
Yeah, it's called the Winning Hand Podcast. We talk about Marvel Champions one card at a time. As you mentioned, every episode we take a card and break it down, different categories, give it a rating, and talk about it in depth. But we also talk about a lot of other stuff. Every episode ends up being like half the card and half a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, it's a really fun podcast. All the links to where you can find that are going to be down below in the video description, so make sure you check that out. But we did an episode on the Winning Hand podcast that is out or may be out because we're still up in the air on scheduling of another card. So make sure you check that out. I'll link that down below as well. But oh, I'm excited. Serve and Protect. So Serve and Protect is one of these alliance cards. And can you tell me what alliance is?
Alliance means that the cost of the card can be paid by all or any players at the table. So you don't have to bear that burden yourself. You can play the card and then you don't have to pay any of the cost if you don't want to. Everyone else can pay it, or you can pay all of it, or you can share it.
And the cost of the card is considered to be the printed cost of the card, as well as anything before that cost arrow. So this is a hero interrupt that says when any amount of threat would be placed on the main scheme, we can exhaust an X-Force or an X-Men character. That is still part of the cost. So any character or any player at the table can help pay for the resource cost or exhaust those characters. And then you get to prevent the threat that is being put on the scheme and give each of those characters a tough status card. So Boomguy, do you use this card in normal day, or is this one of those elusive cards that doesn't really get too much love from you?
Well, as we talked about in the podcast episode, Alliance is tricky because there's a lot of different things to hit. This one is less expensive. I think many of them are burdened by a pretty high cost. This is not the case, but this has some other costs, as you mentioned, all the text before the arrow, which also makes it interesting because in a multiplayer game, as I said before, you don't have to pay any of the printed costs, like the two up above, right? Someone else could pay that. Someone else could also pay the other costs. So you could play this card from your hand, and two other people at the table could exhaust their players, and they could spend resources, and you might end up spending nothing on the card, and everyone, the characters that were exhausted get the benefit. But it's cool. But yeah, it's not one I'd say I play a lot. It's a little tricky to line up, but I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah, I think the main thing that really helped pretty much all of the alliance that are between the X-Force and the X-Men characters for the true solo play is the Children of the Atom card, the one cost support where all your X-Men characters get all the other X traits and all the X traits get all the other ones. And so you're able to run a deck that is just chock full of like X-Men characters, and once you have Children of the Atom on the table, now they can either be the X-Men or the X-Force character. I think it is important to note that we do have to exhaust two separate characters, even if they have both of the same traits.
Yes.
But yeah, so you play a lot more multiplayer than I do.
I think so.
Yeah. The main concern that I have with this card in True Solo is the fact that it's a hero interrupt, right? So whenever we're placing threat on the main scheme, when we're in hero form, it's typically when we've drawn like a Dark Designs or an Advance, or just that stage one of the villain phase where we're hitting just a little bit of threat. And at that point, is it worth playing this card? What are your thoughts around, like, from a True Solo lens, like, is there a way to like manage that, get more threat? I don't know.
Yeah, so I think this is a tricky thing to line up because it wants to be enough threat to make it worth it, or you look at it the other way and decide like it's actually two tough cards and maybe that is more valuable. And that's kind of, we're going to get to that later, but that's how I build around this a lot.
Yep. And I've talked about this before. I don't think I've ever necessarily talked about it with you, but one of the things that I struggle with when I'm evaluating power of cards is, does one effect kind of pay for the cost of the card itself? And am I trying to do everything on the card to kind of justify the cost. But I think 2 tough status cards for an effective cost of 3 is pretty good. So even if you're just preventing like 1 threat, that's not horrible, because that's 2 villain blocks, assuming that they don't have piercing or anything like that.
Yeah, even in a true solo game, right? Like, assuming you have 1 acceleration icon on and you prevent 2 threat. I mean, a lot of solo players would be happy for a character that has 2 thwart, right? And so if you're exhausting, if one of the characters you exhaust is your hero, you can think of it as a basic thwart action to get a tough card. That's pretty good. I think the difficulty comes if you're trying to use allies. They have to exhaust, and then they're exhausted, which means they kind of awkwardly sit there for at least a round with the tough card, not being able to do anything. So you're sacrificing what would have been their activation. So very quickly, the math gets very complicated in terms of like what you're getting and what you're sacrificing potentially. But it's a fun interaction to work at. And also, I got to say, as someone who talks about art in the podcast all the time, these suits are dope. I don't read comics, but like these X-Men suits, why don't they all wear these? That's it.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I also don't look at art too much, but I like the suits. Who even is this in the art?
I have no idea. But for some
I
reason,
don't
the
either.
third one from the left, the man with the dark hair, has a different suit. All of the rest of them have like a clear X, but his neck is yellow. So that's like a signifier of rank or something. It's like Star Trek.
Yeah.
I don't know. But these suits are cool, and they're like carrying extras. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're about to suit up. Wait, no, that's a different card. Never mind.
Different card.
Yeah. That's interesting. So if you do know who these are, I don't even have a guess. I don't have a.
If I was going to guess, I would say the second one from the left, the blonde guy, might be Cannonball, because he's got those goggles, and I think I saw that in a different art. And maybe the one on the left is Magic, because it kind of looks like Magic, but the other two, no clue.
Yeah, I can see the Magic. The one on the far right almost looks like a Valkyrie to me, but that doesn't make any sense thematically.
I mean, maybe they teamed up. Who knows?
They probably did at some point in the comics. I mean, those comics go everywhere. Yeah, right? Okay, yeah. So 2 effective cost. Let's switch to like kind of the multiplayer angle. If you are going to be playing this card, are you looking at exhausting your hero, your ally, to be that kind of before the cost arrow cost of the card, or does it kind of depend on the deck build?
It definitely depends on the deck. So we're going to talk about some decks that we brought later, and I'll talk about the thinking that went in there. Generally, it's like easier to ready a hero than it is to ready an ally. So if you're going to exhaust someone, it also makes it easier to line up, right? If you have to exhaust 2 characters, you always know you're going to be in play because you are the hero. So then you just have to have one other one. Trying to line up 2 allies can be cool, but then again, you're stuck with these allies kind of in limbo where they can't do anything. They're now tough and can block or activate next round, but with no way to ready them becomes difficult. So I think usually I lean towards the hero as one of them, just for ease. But what about you?
I think it's very deck build dependent. I think is kind of what it boils down to. You're right in the sense that like it's really hard to ready an ally. Maybe if I'm running the second player is running like a leadership with command teams or something like that, then it's a fairly obvious choice. I'm going to be exhausting the allies because we have ways to ready them. But it is a lot easier to like use that hero activation or ready that hero activation, or just build around a hero that doesn't necessarily value their activation as highly as some of the other ones. Like I think like I don't know, like Colossus or somebody really likes his activation, but he can ready. So that's one hand, right? 14 hit points. So he has ways to ready. Or on the other hand, I'm trying to think like maybe Jubilee. I do like her ability, but like her stats aren't that great. So like you can exhaust her to kind of pay part of the cost because she's thwarting for 1 or 2 once her suit is out. And so like I do like what you were saying, and I didn't really like think about it too much like you were saying, but I like it when you're talking about like it's effectively you're thwarting just in the hero or in the villain phase, right? If you're exhausting your character, you're removing 2 threat with an acceleration icon. That makes a lot of sense. So I like that way to conceptualize it. And if you have enough allies to kind of like chump this round and then next round, or heck, even like just take the attack and defend it, run it into your tough,
Mm-hmm.
the next round you can chump with the ally with the tough and keep them around. Yeah, there's a lot of like interesting sequencing that has to go into this, but like it is a pretty decent hit to your tempo to exhaust two characters, especially without the ability to ready any of them. They're gone for the next round as well,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it just comes down, if you're going to run the math game, and the puzzle there just becomes you're thwarting in the villain phase, right? So instead of thwarting that 2 threat that they placed in the upkeep, or the 1 threat even, when it's my turn, I'm just going to do it now, exhaust, get the tough, and like you said, then just tank. So it's kind of ends up being like you thwarted for free and then blocked. Then I think it works because you get a defense to absorb a whole bunch of damage potentially without piercing, and you get to thwart. I mean, threat prevention and thwarting aren't exactly the same thing, but most of the time they work out to be the same thing. So then I think it works out, right? Like you exhaust, you prevent some threat, you don't take any damage. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So what before we dive into the deck builds, what kind of heroes were you thinking about building around this card, or what heroes like this card in your mind?
Well, I mean, there's a very limited pool already, right? Because you have to have X-Force and X-Men. Children of the Atom opens that up. It means that really any mutant can now be able to do this. Immediately, a couple of them came to mind. So I thought about who can ready themselves. So that would be great if you have a hero with a ready. That means that you could do this and then ready up, and you haven't really lost that much. You're ready to do something. Or which heroes don't care about their basic activations at all. Or which heroes might be preventing a ton of threat. Those are kind of the 3 pools I began to think of. And the ones that prevent a ton of threat, immediately I came to Deadpool, because he can spam out acceleration icons and you could potentially prevent a ton of threat here. I think I didn't go that route. Spoiler alert. Then I think the people who don't care about their basic activation, right? Jubilee's a big one. You might use the resource, so you're essentially spending an extra resource, but that makes this then a 3 cost, which is hard. But I think the people who want to ready are the ones that like this the most, or who ready easily. Colossus is a good one because he's like, whatever, right? Shadowcat might not hate this because you can defend with something else.
Mm.
You can defend with the Defiance or whatever to still trigger no damage. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, as we were talking about it, when you said like if there's accelerations on the main scheme, I was like, oh, Deadpool. And I love that shout, because Deadpool, you'll have 6-7 acceleration icons, and even in like a true solo sense, now you're preventing 7-8 threat from being placed, and this pays for itself over and over and over again every single time you draw it, pretty much.
Yeah.
I really like that shout. That's fun. Yeah, the other ones that I would think from like a true solo standpoint, I think Colossus is probably one of the best users of this card, just because he's not the greatest thwarter in the game, but he also just loves tough status cards.
Mm-hmm.
So if you flip up, you get a tough status card, you play Serve and Protect, you're able to then trigger that yet again to get his second tough status card. He can knock it off. You can add it back with his Organic Steel, or draw some cards with Iron Will. So like I think that Serve and Protect, Colossus likes that card. I was running through and trying to build different decks for this. And I tried to not build a Colossus deck because he's the first one that popped into my mind. Mm-hmm. And then I think we kind of had the discussion on the Winning Hand episode, where it's like, if you have characters that can save these cards for a rainy day, when you line it up, this one's a little bit better. It's a little bit easier to line up than the podcast episode, which we're dancing around to not spoil or anything. But this one's a little bit easier. So like, you don't have to be a mutant to play the card. It just makes it a lot easier because you're already fulfilling half of that cost. So you can run it with like a Miss Marvel or a Ghost Spider, someone who can tuck away these events and kind of save it, maybe for that like advance, right? So in a true solo, if I am playing Ghost Spider, I can use Serve and Protect at a time after it's being tucked under George Stacy, use Serve and Protect to prevent like a dark design scheme. And like
Mhm.
that feels like a panic button. I'm out. Like, okay, that saved it. I'm okay. And I think that kind of came into my mind. And then the last one that I thought about before, without talking about the one that I actually built the deck around, was Cyclops, just
Mhm.
because he's able to bring so many X-Men characters. And so there's a decent number of X-Force characters in protection, which is what you would be locked to. But then you can go out and grab the Beast or the Pixies or the characters that are really, really, really good in
Mhm.
with that X-Men trait in the allies, and you're not necessarily locked to the basic or the green X-Men allies, which they're good ones, but I just Cyclops is just really good.
Yeah, there's also people like Marrow, who just comes in, deals two
Mm-hmm.
damage, and is an X Force, and you don't really even. I mean, I think Marrow's a 1/1, maybe a 1/2. Like the activation isn't that important; it only has 2 hit points, so it's just a way to get some quick damage when they enter play, and then you can exhaust them for this later on. There's not a ton of X Force allies though. I do like your shout about Ghost Spider. I think tucking this is interesting. You know, it's not traded with anything, so Jocasta can't grab this because it's not a defense. It's not a leadership card, so Black Panther can't grab it. So you're finding different ways to get this card into hand. And without touching on the way I did that in the deck that I built, we're going to talk about in a minute. There's limited ways, but it only being 2 cost is helpful. You don't want to draw into this in Alter Ego. That's kind of the problem too. So if a character who
Mm-hmm.
flips a lot may not be ideal here. So
Yep.
there's a lot of considerations, which is fun.
Yep. Absolutely. So I shared my deck first when I was a guest on your episode. So let's go ahead and take a look at what deck you built and walk us through, because now I'm very curious how you're setting this up, as
Uh,
you alluded
oh
to.
boy. Okay. All right. So here is the deck that I picked, and I went with Magneto.
Nice.
So one of the considerations, like we talked about, was a hero who can ready themselves, and Magneto has kind of a built-in ready with his cape. So I thought, well, immediately that was appealing, so I can exhaust him for this and then still be ready in the player phase. Also, he's a mutant, so that helps, right? He is half the cost is there. So I'll just read through the deck list.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't need to read through. I'm used to audio podcasts for people that can't see it, but you're already sharing it, so we'll just kind of talk about it as it is. I have 5 allies here. They're all X-Men, but one of the considerations is I wanted allies who can do something and don't care about being exhausted. So, for example, Iceman comes in with 3 freeze counters, and his ability to stun minions is untethered from his ability to be ready or not. So when I put him out there, he's ready, and then I exhaust him to put a tough card on him, and he can still do his ability. Nightcrawler is out there, and it's the same thing. I ideally don't want to use him to exhaust for the tough, but I can. He could stop one attack with a tough, and then he could stop an attack on anybody else just with his interrupt. North Star, same thing. North Star can cancel boost icons irrespective of being ready or not. And then Polaris and Armor just provide more tough cards. So same thing. Polaris is going to come in and give me a tough card, and then I could give her a tough card by exhausting. So I was looking for allies that don't care about their basic activations, or if they're exhausted, their abilities still work. Children of the Atom is in here. I have 2 copies of Defensive Training because I want to make sure I shuffle that card back in again. Serve and Protect.
We've got so much recursion in this deck. I love it.
I mean, because part of the problem I face here, and I did play this a number of times, so I've tested different player counts. The thing you face is by readying yourself with Magnetic Pull, I could mill past a whole bunch of cards. So this is meant to flip down fairly often, and flipping down using Mutant Education, X-Men Instruction, and Defensive Training, ideally, to shuffle a whole bunch of stuff back in, and then draw cards with X-Mansion.
Sick.
So that's kind of the basis of the deck. Ever Vigilant is another way to ready us. The deck is already pretty beefy, but I don't mind that with Magneto because he goes to the deck fairly quickly. But I was mindful, and at one point, it was approaching 50, and I tried to cut a few cards to make it a little more manageable. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to recur things, and it's meant to flip often. So Moira McTaggart is here to give us extra cards on the way back up again, and then all the stuff to shuffle back in. So this is where I landed on it, and I played it at 1, 2, and 3 players. I did not play this at 4 player.
What player count did it shine at?
I thought it was best at 3 player when
Okay.
I had another mutant. When there was
Yeah,
no other mutants, it feels very much like you're still just playing the solo version because
got it.
I'm still dependent on my own allies. But I did play alongside an X Force, and that helped a little bit because then, and that was I specifically asked that person to play an X Force, and then we were able to both exhaust, and then essentially the allies didn't matter because we could constantly exhaust ourselves to get those tough cards, and then it's really great when you have
Yeah.
an X-Force ally on the table and it's like, look, we'll just both exhaust, especially if that person has a way to ready themselves or don't mind being exhausted. You're just going to grab those tough cards and prevent a bunch of threat. And then in multiplayer, Serve and Protect is just better because you're preventing more threat in the upkeep phase. So just at 3-player, you're preventing triple the threat on step 1. So right away, it's just hitting for 3 and then tough cards. So I felt it was
Yeah.
better at higher player counts.
Nice. Then also, if you do have someone in alter ego, then you can just kind of hang out and wait for the scheme, which is probably going to be higher than the 2 or 3 threat that you're placing, depending on how many acceleration tokens you have. That's really fun. I love Mags with Mutant Education and X-Men Instruction. Plus his ability when he flips, he's just shuffling cards back in, and then you have Asteroid M, I think, is the one that shuffles cards. It's so fun.
So you flip and you shuffle 3, and then Asteroid M shuffles a Magnetic, and then Mutant Education, X-Men, Defense Drain. Like you're just shuffling. I was shuffling so many cards every time, which is really fun. I think in a multiplayer game, you could definitely cut X-Men Instruction. It becomes less valuable to shuffle those allies back in, so you could slim the deck a little bit there. But then I would add the honorary cards. So if you're playing with honorary X-Force, for example, you can have that person put it on themselves, and then if they flip down, I can still trigger this and exhaust an X-Force to get the tough.
Yeah. I'm curious, was there ever a thought of adding superpower training to the deck to make sure that you get that cape early? Or is that just kind of a later game? It's nice to have once we have the ability to ready.
I didn't find it too much of an issue. Like his magnetic pull, you're finding all of his cards so quickly that I never found like it was very long before I got it. You're going to get it on the first deck pass, basically, because you're going to pull every time. So I didn't worry about that as much. The one I didn't worry about really was his armor. I would often just kind of chuck that. I think that's a card that is like, but that's beside the point. But yeah, I think with this, you could definitely slim down a little bit and get closer. You could cut some X-Men Destruction, and you could, maybe one of the other players can play one of these other cards, the mutant ones, X-Jet, Utopian, X-Mansion. Somebody else might play that, or Moira, and then you're both taking advantage of it.
Nice. I like it. It's fun. What is S&P 500? What's the call there?
That's just, S&P stands for Serve and Protect, and I was trying to think of a clever name, and I pulled the Dow Index. It doesn't make any sense, but I couldn't think of a more clever name before now. So
no, Serve and Protect. I was not making that connection. I love it. Plus, he's also like Magneto is one of the richest characters in the game. Yeah, so you do have that tie, which is really fun. Very cool.
So it was fun. It worked pretty well. I do think this is like a card on the lower end of power. So if you're one who likes to build cards and decks for power, I don't know if Serve and Protect is going to see a lot of play. True.
I'm really excited to see Magneto here. I'm happy. I'm happy for that.
You should try it.
I will. I absolutely will. Right. We'll do a stream once both of the episodes are out where I'll try both of them.
Heck yeah. That'd be awesome. All right. Let's talk about your deck.
Yeah, let's talk about
my deck. Enough about my deck. Let's talk about yours. I'm happy to see you went in a different direction. So we also built decks for the episode you were on. My podcast for the card we talked about. We keep dancing around it. It was Joining Forces. It was a different alliance card. It may be out already. I don't know why we're like, it's not a spoiler here. It's not like an MCU movie.
It's a secret.
Yeah. But we talked about that. So we both built decks and talked about those as well. That one was a little harder to pull off, I think, than this one. But so here's your deck. I'll let you talk through it.
Yep. So this is the Angel Servant XL. I was trying to be clever here. But I wanted to try Angel mainly because I built this with the intent of running it in true solo with the ability to be okay in multiplayer. But with Archangel having the acceleration token on like his printed card, whenever we're preventing threat, we're actually getting a little bit more prevention of that threat because we have a built-in acceleration token. And so that's kind of what drew me to Angel. And then I just kind of like, I was like, oh wait, hold on, this is like kind of fun. I was like starting to enjoy it. So I did the same thing with Children of the Atom. I'm running only one of those, and then I did drop in Utopia because I like panicked. I forgot about that as I was looking at your deck. So Utopia is in this deck as well to open up the ally slots. But Children of the Atom helps kind of that smoothing out. So we don't necessarily have to have a printed X-Men or an X-Force character. We can have either or, and it works for Angel. And then I put in 2 Ready to Rumbles because Angel is flipping so much that I figured with the Ready to Rumble, we were able to ready whenever we flip because we're probably flipping each round. Or we have the Techno Organic Wings that if we're in the Angel form, not Archangel, we could ready our hero. That being said, whenever I'm playing this, it feels really good to use Techno for the Archangel ability, which is reducing the next aerial event by 2. That just feels very good. So
Yeah,
I'm
does.
trying to use that. But I started to build it, and I was just kind of like doing some queries on CDB to find like aerial cards or like X-Men, and I ran across Warpath. And Warpath, I actually think came in Angel's pack. He did, yeah.
He did.
And Warpath has a fun ability that whenever he defends against an attack, you can play an event with a hero action ability from your hand. You do have to pay the cost, but he comes with tough. And then if you're able to get him another tough as either like a defend or like with serve and protect and use him as one of the, it seems like every other round we're going to be able to kind of like play or trigger Warpath. And because Angel's ability and Archangel's ability is once per phase, we can start to trigger the Angel of Death, and I don't actually remember what his Angel of Life. Oh, well, that makes sense. Angel of Death and Angel of Life. Those responses where you get to draw a card or deal damage equal to the aerial event that you just played once per phase. We're able to trigger that twice in a round, once during the player and then once during the hero. And then we got Change of Fortune. And Change of Fortune is a newer card that I have not revisited with Angel, but if we take out a minion during the villain phase, we're going to get to draw some cards. So we're going to be using like his Razor Dives or his Adaptive Plumage or kind of like almost any of the aerial events if we're an Archangel to ping some damage to hit some minions before they even activate, and we get to draw some cards. So it's a little bit of a resource fix here. Now it is a little bit delayed, right? Because Warpath is going to be exhausted. He's going to so it's a little wonky, but that's why I have a couple other allies in here. We have Iceman for the minion stun. If we're going to use Come Get Me Bub to summon the minions, we might as well stun them just in case we're not able to take them out that round.
Yeah.
And then we have Rock Slide is the other one. So big beefy guy, but he's got Retaliate 1. And so if we're able to kind of ping some stuff and use him on the off turns as then when we're using Warpath, that's kind of the idea there. So yeah.
Yeah, I like this. I like, you could even potentially play Ever Vigilant off of Warpath, right? If you play Serve and Protect to exhaust yourself, you could Ever Vigilant right away and then ready up again. I really love the tech about Archangel and the acceleration icon. I didn't actually think about that. That's super clever that you're already just preventing 2. So then it's just a thwart. And if you're an Archangel, it's actually better because his thwart is bad. So I think this is really cool. The Ready to Rumble, even Ready for a Fight, works really well with the triple heroes because you don't have to be an alter ego. You can just flip from hero form to hero form, which is cool. No, this is really clever. I think I like this a lot. Have you played this, or is this just a theory?
Not yet.
Okay.
Just a theory so far. Okay. And so whenever this posts, the next live stream, we will probably be playing it.
Okay.
So usually what I do for these is I build a deck and then we trial it on the live stream, and then I talk through any modifications at that point.
Oh, that's awesome.
Kind of like see like the revisionary process. But yeah, I didn't quite put together the fact that you can trigger Ever Vigilant off the Warpath and ready and still do the damage or draw the card. I like that. That's
like
and then you're removing even more threat.
Yeah, prevent the threat, remove some, ready, do more damage with Angel of Death. Yeah, it's a really clever interaction. I think Warpath is really fun. I just haven't been able to get him to work consistently. Like, it's cool he comes with toughness. You can get his ability once, probably twice. But if he defends too much of an attack, right, it's a response, right? So it
Yep.
would happen. So if he doesn't survive the attack, then you can't do the response.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I tried to make him work. I just it's tough and
It's hard.
pun. Um
Because he's an X-Force, right? He's not an
he
X-Men.
is, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Polaris doesn't help him. I mean, until you have Children of the Atom in play, like then I guess you can make him work. Yeah, I mean, I think I only put 2 copies of Children of the Atom in Magneto because I mill through so much so fast.
Yeah.
And the problem with him is consistency, and you'd hate to see that one copy go early, and then it's like, oh man, now you're stuck.
Yep. Yeah, I could see myself running this up to 2 Children of the Atoms, depending on how infrequently we're hitting it, but I think we'll probably be fine. Angel has a lot of card draw, and so like I figured we would probably see it relatively soon, but it is something I think to be cognizant of. The what was I gonna say? But I think Warpath is a lot, or it gets interesting to revisit now that we have Come Get Me Bub, because I think I'm always looking at Warpath to defend minions, and before Come Get Me Bub, it was a little bit more inconsistent on if and how we could do that, especially in True Solo, and then also Change of Fortune, because now we're going to be able to profit even more off of playing something in the villain phase, whereas like outside of like Angel and a couple other like nitpicky things, like it's why play it during the villain phase versus the hero phase. It comes down to like a situation, whereas like Change of Fortune, if we can take it out during the villain phase, we actually get something for that.
Yeah, that is, I think, for me, the biggest issue with Warpath is like finding an event that's worth actually playing in the villain phase, because most of the time, like you said, there's really no difference. I could just wait and play this in my turn. Like, there's no reason for me to play it off turn. You have to find a real advantage. Like, I did experiment with some Warpath stuff using pinned down. If you can get a minion with pin down, because the minion will still activate if it has a 1 attack with him. Like, he can exhaust and defend, and he'll never take damage, but he'll always be able to trigger that. But the problem I found with that, like, that combo is cool, but I never found an event that was like, oh, I have to play this during the villain phase. So that ended up being the issue with it. So he doesn't get as much use as I was like. He's super clever. Maybe I'm not clever enough.
I love that, the pin down. I also, like, my mind immediately went to Vision, which I know you're a huge fan of.
Yeah, of course.
Where it's like, okay, well, now that's kind of cool. Like pin down and Vision are good friends and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I did not add into the deck that I was seriously considering were taunts. Because if we're using Rockslide and Warpath to block the villain attacks and we're taking out minions, we have a lot of tough generation, especially with Serve and Protect. We have Established Perimeter in here. We have Polaris. We have just a lot of ways to generate tough. And I'm slightly concerned that we're going to be running into wanting to use the Serve and Protect and already having a tough. And so if we can use Taunt to generate an attack to knock off our tough, then we can actually get some more cards. We can, play a little bit more, and then we can play Serve and Protect again. And so like that's my thing that's the main thing I'm going to be looking at when I'm playing this deck and evaluating, do I want to put these in, or are we just kind of okay, it may be a sideboard thing just in case, like, there's, there are villains out there that attack you a lot.
Yeah, my favorite Change of Fortune Warpath thing is either Come Get Me Bub or Hard Knocks. I think being able to grab a tough is really clever. So if you're using Warpath and you can trigger Hard Knocks to kill a minion, grab 2 cards and a tough card, then it becomes really cool. I think using Come Get Me Bub in the villain phase is really clever too. More so for Thor, probably. Like, he's the one I think of the most. But even like being able to just play Come Get Me Bub to immediately get tough again. Like Warpath defends an attack. I'm not tough. Oh, I'm going to eat another attack. Like, I'll just play Come Get Me Bub, grab another tough quick, and then worry about that later. So I don't know. I mean, but Hard Knocks, you have enough tough generation here. I'm not sure it would really be valuable, but it combos a Change of Fortune nicely.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've never really thought about that. Oh my gosh, the card pool is getting so big that you
Yeah.
see all of these like cool interactions. Like, oh, it just makes
Yeah.
me excited.
Yeah, it's super awesome. So this has inspired me to try to dig back into Warpath again. So maybe I'll try to find
Nice.
a way to make I want him to work so bad, but then every time I play it, I just feel like I could just play this card in a minute. There's no reason. So you got to find a reason to do it, which
Yep.
is cool.
Yep. Yeah, and that's where I like the card designs to be. I don't want a card to be in every single deck. I don't want it to never be used. I want it to be like, oh, this fits perfectly. And like
Yes.
that's just like really cool design space for me.
Yeah, because I want to feel clever when I build a deck, right? Like I want to feel like,
Yep.
oh, I found this cool interaction and this is fun, instead of just like, oh, I'll just play Professor X because he's just the best ally. So why not just play
Yep.
him? You know. So I shy away from cards like that, and I generally populate my decks with cards that are like a little more niche, like Serve and Protect.
Nice. Nice. Okay, so we ended actually all of the episodes I've been on with a card rating, and because you're on, I do want to throw the homage to Winning Hand, and let's finish the episode and rate the card out of 10. And do you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So I'll just kind of use our metric we use in the podcast. I think out of 10, I would put Serve and Protect. If 5 is right in the middle, true neutral, I would put Serve and Protect at a 5. I think it's a card that is definitely usable. It's not terrible. I don't think it's great. It has a pretty niche deck building restriction, right? You need to have the mutants. You don't have to do one yourself, but you'd have to have 2 mutants of different teams in play, and that just becomes difficult. So finding a way to do that is hard. But the card is fun. If you can get it to pay off, it's really cool. And that, I think, is the best kind of card design, which is when it pays off, it's really fun. And you just have to find a way to make it work. So I put it right in the middle. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's fun, but it doesn't get used a ton.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel right about the same. I'm going to go a little bit lower. I think I'm going to put it at a 4, mainly because I play so much true solo. This is just going to be a card that's way better in multiplayer. But then, like, also at multiplayer, if you are using this to block like a villain scheme or something like that, you probably have a dedicated justice player at like a higher player count. So like the efficiency kind of rolls off a little bit, or maybe not the efficiency, but like the if you're running 3-player, you don't have a justice. I think it's better. But like if you have a justice player that's focused on thwarting, you're kind of like taking away a lot of that threat. So I don't know. It occupies a weird space, but like you said, I love how it forces you to be creative in deck building, and kind of going into the multiple teams or build 2 kind of decks that can work like symbiotically together with an X-Force and an X-Men, and kind of like throw Children of the Atom out the window and kind of build into like this team dynamic. But I'm going to go with 4. But fun factor, deck building fun factor would make it a little bit higher.
I think the Alliance cards generally skew more towards multiplayer games, at least in their utility. But I do love how Alliance cards incentivize you to like bring the gaming into your deck building. So instead of just showing up at an event and be like, oh, I brought, my Magneto protection deck, you're encouraged to like think in advance, like, hey, I'm going to bring this week to our meetup, I'm going to bring a Serve and Protect deck. Can somebody please bring an X-Force or bring some X-Force allies so we can try to make it work as a table? And then I feel like just extends the game from the game into your deck building, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, cool. Well, thank you so very much, Boomguy, for coming on, talking about Serve and Protect, the Alliance card. A little bit of a meta thing there with the team up. Can you tell everyone one more time where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Discord, Boomguy. You can find me Winning Hand. We're on YouTube and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And come check us out. Nelson has been on recently, or will be on recently, depending on when this is released. But yeah, always welcome back on the show, Nelson.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. Thank you all for watching, and make sure that you drop your decks that use Serve and Protect either down in the comments or on the Living Card Games Discord channel. We've created a specific channel for Serve and Protect where we can discuss the card, and you can drop deck links there and earn a little bit of XP. Make Sauron happy. Alrighty, thank you all, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.